evening. Welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. The government says it has identified most of the land for a 10-year housing target of 470,000 new flats. It has scoured far and wide for suitable housing sites, but as producer Chris Lincoln reports, there are conflicts and critics say missed opportunities.
We have adequate funding, sophisticated technology, and feasible plans for increasing land supply. The only question is whether we can stand united with one vision.
Hong Kong, a housing target of 470,000 new units over the next 10 years. The government said earlier this month it had secured land to meet the targets set in the chief executive's January policy address. That's about 400,000 units. The development secretary says they're still short of land for some 60 to 70,000 units.
We have identified a substantial number of sites that could be considered for rezoning for development into housing sites. So if we can have the support of local community, we are confident that we can meet the target. The challenge is when these sites come forward to district councils, the response of the local district council.
The government has proposed public housing on this land in the western part of Kennedy Town, overlooking Victoria Road. It's known as the Mount Davis Cottage area, and it's been left idle for over a decade.
This is a very rare piece of land, and everyone has been talking to the government, why don't you use this for housing? Because we do have shortage. This is used as a temporary housing area to house people almost like a squatter, low-rise housings on step platforms.
It was cleared after the surrounding slopes were found to be unstable. The residents were resettled in public housing. Right next door, a former police married quarters site and some other government land. Combined, this is about 5 hectares.
Since year 2006, the government has been pressured to review the usage of this land. And at that time, there's been a talk of turning this site into public housing, but nothing has happened up until this spring. The government tabled a preliminary plan to the district council.
The plan covers the waterfront area too, replacing former industrial uses in favor of a promenade, and calls for 1,000 private housing units on sites like the Cadogan Street Temporary Garden. On the hillside will be 2,000 public housing units.
Nature has taken back what people have abandoned. So we are seeing this as already quite a serene place with birds and butterflies and so on. I think if we leave it for too long, people will think that this should be left as a conservation area.
Indeed, the neighbors in private housing across the road don't want more housing in this environment.
You can see that this is a nice view in here. More trees, very green.
Central and Western District Council Vice Chair Chan Hock Fung says residents have told council the area cannot support an increase in population by some 8,000 to 10,000 people. Some strategic road widening is supposed to improve traffic flow, and the MTR is coming to Kennedy Town.
We are actually 300 meters away from the new MTR stations being built.
Most of the residents want to drive more than take the MTR. In this area, it's quite far away from the MTR station. They think that 400 meters. Yeah, maybe 10 minutes walking distance.
Chan says the council unanimously opposes the government plan for 2,000 housing units here and has asked the planning department to revise it. How many units would be okay for this place?
I think several hundreds is okay.
Council also doesn't want more private housing in the busier part of Kennedy Town, already congested due to rebuilding projects like this one. More than a year ago, the government started moving to get its hands on the quickest land it could find to rezone for housing. And that is land designated for government, institution, or community use, GIC land. This playing field up Braemar Hill on Hong Kong Island is one such site. Since 2007, the Chinese International School has leased this land, first on a 5-year fixed term, and then as of last November, a 1-year term renewable quarterly. With the neighboring Hong Kong Japanese school, CIS spent some $20 million putting in a pitch and other recreational facilities. The site is used by other schools in the area, community groups, and the general public. Now the government plans to resume the land. To counter that, CIS has applied to make its private treaty grant for the site permanent. And the Town Planning Board is considering an application from CIS to rezone the land from GIC to open space. That would thwart any government move to put in housing and better secure it as a permanent sports ground. School administrators refuse to comment on camera. At Baptist University, another campaign to stop land right next door from being rezoned for housing. This used to be the Lee Wai Lee campus of the Institute of Vocational Education, ideal, according to Baptist U, for a university hospital.
We had been talking to the government through Food and Health Bureau on the feasibility of building a Chinese medicine teaching hospital. There was no agreement that the government would give us the land for building that hospital.
That's because late last year, the government proposed to rezone the southern portion of the site from GIC to residential use. The school formally objected to the rezoning. Submissions closed in April.
You may know that there are 25,877 oppositions, whereas there are only 7 in support of rezoning. So it's 99.99% versus 0.01%.
The government has marked a part of this site for Baptist University, but the school says it's not enough.
The government has reserved the northern portion, which is about 0.64 hectare, for education purpose. It would allow us to build student hostels there. So I think we would build student hostels, and we would like to maintain our stance that the other portion of the land should be used to build a Chinese medicine teaching hospital there.
If you use GIC land, then probably you're deleting from the community a source of land that should be reserved for GIC purposes. As a matter of principle, it should not be a regular means of getting new land.
Just 23% of the land in Hong Kong is developed. Another 40% is protected land in country parks. Long considered off limits, the Secretary for Development asked last month in his blog, could we not consider developments in country parks? Protests followed, and the Director of Planning noted other options for development ahead of country parks.
On the outskirts of some of our developed areas, we can still find some damaged greenbelt, or so-called brownfield sites.
Land that's already had development on it. Certain greenbelt sites have indeed been targeted for development.
There are 13 sites in greenbelt areas measuring 57 hectares in total, which are devegetated, deserted, or formed and considered suitable for rezoning for residential use.
Like this one.
Technically it's known as greenbelt. It's being used temporarily as a work site. For the government, it's important right now to demonstrate that they're doing something. Despite the fact that some of the small sites are not very good. This one has a refuse collection point.
And under the plans, the refuse collection point will stay where it is. 2- or 3-story townhouses will be built here.
To make this available for housing, it's not going to be very productive, but this is the type of very small sites that are being made available very quickly by government.
Urban land is also being made available. A residential building will be put on a site in Mongkok, now being used short-term as a car park. The same will happen at another empty lot down the block.
As they're trying to locate big pieces of land and get them ready, they're scrambling to get all these little small sites around Hong Kong available for housing.
When we come back,
it's time for them to shrink back and maintain just a nominal presence here and free up that land.
Hong Kong's quiet military bases.
We should ask the central government to have these pieces of unused military land back to Hong Kong.